punches. One of humans' few methods of attack without the use of a tool. We humans don't have claws or teeth or anything of the sort, so when under attack we have few options other than flailing our limbs about wildly. But for most of us, even this doesn't help too much, with the exception of those of us trained in combat and those of us with a higher strength stat. Some humans are able to put out a lot of power, like we see here. MMA legend Bas Rutten punches hard enough to cause some serious damage, including rupturing a spleen. A punch at 1,300 pounds of force. But can he defeat giant monsters with nothing more than a single punch? Can he cause fire to burst from his hands? Didn't think so. One Punch Man. One Punch Man is an interesting series. From webcomic to manga to anime, it just keeps getting wackier. It all circles around the story of Saitama, a superhero whose super strength allows him to defeat most adversaries in a single punch. And not even a punch at full force. He's shattered golems into rubble and splattered beings into gore. He's even punched the rain away. How does that even work? But what truly is the extent of his power? What if One Punch Man punched you in the face once? Well, at this point the anime, the webcomic, and the manga have yet to finish, so something could happen in the future that debunks everything I'm about to say, but as of right now, let's figure out what would happen if Saitama punched you in the face at full force. Initially, going into this video, I was going to research everything, including how strong One Punch Man is defensively. But for the sake of simplicity, and the sake of this video not turning into multiple hours long, let's just look at his offensive power. We know Saitama can survive in outer space by holding his breath, and that he can be struck by lightning, which frequently is 5 times hotter than the surface of the sun, and not even flinch. So there is no question about Saitama's endurance, but what would happen if he punched you in the face with a serious punch at all of his might? Well, you would die. Obviously. But how would you die? A lot. You would be deader than anything has been dead before. But what's the science behind all that? Let's look into it. First, let's look back. Around 2 years ago, I made a video asking the question, what would happen if you were Falcon punched? It's one of my favorite early videos, and looking back to this video, I get a lot of the research out of the way. In case you don't know, the Falcon Punch is Captain Falcon's signature move. Captain Falcon being the protagonist from F-Zero, though this move, Falcon Punch, is from his Smash Bros. Incarnation. Having done this video in the past was a huge help, as Captain Falcon's fist catches ablaze due to its force in the same way that Saitama's does from time to time. Most prevalently, in the intro to the anime. In this video, I figured out what it would take for your gloved fist to catch fire through nothing more than air friction. And long story short, for a gloved fist to catch fire long term, it would have to be moving at Mach 12, meaning the fist is moving at the speed of sound a dozen times over. So 4,067 meters per second. That Mach 12 speed is just what it would take to ignite your fist. And that's if you have plenty of build-up time for the temperature to rise at a solid pace. And that ignition is just a little flame. Who wants that? I want a big fiery bird! Kwah! Or an explosion, like in Saitama's case. The biggest factor of all is that during a punch, especially a punch as fast as Saitama's and Captain Falcon's, you have very little time and distance to reach that point of temperature. In fact, the flames come out very early on in the punching motion, as in it's almost instant. If you were to build up to a speed of Mach 12, you would have all that time accelerating to build temperature up too. But in this case, we don't have that luxury. The fist needs to go from static to flaming in under half a second. The temperature of the fist needs to go from the regular temperature of the air to its ignition point of 212 degrees Celsius, and then some, in under half a second. In order to do that, your fist would have to be moving at an astonishing Mach 23, 7,683 meters per second.
Mach 23 and flying fast, come on! Power Rangers in space!
That speed is just for Captain Falcon. Saitama, our one brunch friend, completely surpasses this. By leaps and bounds, even. We can see this raw power in the opening, where we are focused on his fist bursting into flames. Seriously, having his fist so prominently right here has been a huge help in this video. Anyway, after catching fire, it then bursts into a flash of light and then appears to be vibrating rapidly and has turned white. So not only is the fist now moving so quickly that fire can't keep up with it, but it lost all of its color in a burst of light. This is called the Doppler effect, also known as red and blue shifting. To best explain it, let's imagine you're standing on the sidewalk and you see a fire truck heading your way. You hear the sirens going off, and as it passes you, the sirens sound a bit different and odd compared to when the fire truck was coming towards you. Now that the truck has passed you, the sirens sound lower and slower. From the siren's perspective, it's been putting out the same sound as ever, but from the observer, it has gone from high-pitched and fast to low-pitched and slow. This is due to the differing wavelengths of the sound. As the source of the sound approaches you, the sound waves are condensed, getting smaller, thus faster. But when the source of the sound is moving away from you, they are longer and slower. Interestingly, this same phenomenon applies to light as well, which is hard to notice to the typical observer because light just moves so dang fast. So to get an idea of how it works, we need to look to the stars, which happen to be light years away. If stars are approaching the Earth, it has shorter light waves, as they are more compressed, so stars have a bluish tint. Whereas stars moving away from the Earth appear to be red-shifted, because we are getting the longer wavelengths. And while Saitama's fist doesn't exactly blue shift into a greenish hue, it does lose its color and has a chromatic aberration filter applied to it. Not everything has to be 100% scientifically correct, and in this case, we call it artistic license or artistic liberty. Artists do this all the time, changing something to not be as scientifically or historically accurate, but in doing so, they make it look a lot cooler. And honestly, this looks way cooler than if it was just changing into a green color. Bleh. But taking this screenshot into Photoshop reveals that this white is actually just a really, really bright purple. So it's kind of accurate? Anyway, for something to blue shift drastically enough to lose all of its red color, it would have to be moving very, very quickly. As in 46 to 54% of the speed of light. And for the sake of simplicity, rather than going with this range, let's just say 50%. 50% the speed of light is the speed that Saitama's fist is moving right here in the intro, which, as of now, seems to be the fastest his fist has ever moved, and thus, this is the seriousest punch he has ever given. As of now. So moving at half the speed of light would mean that his fist is moving at that many meters per second. Or more simply, 335.5 million miles an hour. Now, it could be argued that Saitama can indeed go faster than light, as he was able to dodge the light speed slash attack by Flashy Flash, aka Light Speed Flash. However, it can also be argued, and with significantly more evidence to back it up, namely science, that Light Speed Flash and Slash are just names, and not actually the speed of light. If this character could go at the speed of light, then every atom he would hit would explode, including all of them in the air and in a very wide radius. Light speed is simply an exaggeration. So now for the literally burning question, what would happen if you were punched by Saitama at full force, or at least at the force as seen in the intro? And again, for the sake of simplicity, we will assume that Saitama's fist is the average size for a male fist. Well, firstly, this means you will be punched at a force of 95,950 trillion joules of force, or about the equivalent of 23 megatons of TNT, meaning about 1,400 times more powerful than Little Boy, the nuclear bomb dropped on Hiroshima. If this punch happened in Miami, Florida, this would be its effect. New Jersey, this effect. And nothing of value would be lost. What gets interesting is that because this explosion is caused by a sideways moving punch rather than a dropped bomb, the explosion wouldn't be a perfect circle. Rather, it would be somewhat cone-shaped. There would be this spike poking out of the sphere, and this spike and sheer power of Saitama makes sense, as we frequently see him accidentally taking out mountains along with the enemies, a feat that generally takes kilotons and megatons of power to do. And while being punched by Saitama, you'll have to be dealing with significantly more than just the force of the shockwaves, because as the fist moves, it starts heating up more and more, hence the igniting. But at full force, this fist goes beyond ignition, and as it speeds up, its mass and density increases exponentially. And in the end, it will be around 71,500,000,000,000 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 2.6 million times hotter than the core of our sun, and about 24,000 times hotter than the hottest stars we know of. And it doesn't really matter how much further we go with this, because at this point, and a significant number of points below it, you will not only die in one punch, but your body will be turned into mist, burned and exploded at the molecular level, liquefied. Getting punched in the head in this case is extremely mind-blowing. Just as mind-blowing as how overused this joke is. And this is only what would happen if you were punched by Saitama specifically with this punch in the opening sequence. And he could very well be restraining himself here too, as he often does restrain himself, not even bothering with half of the punches he pulls. So it is very possible that even this is not the maximum limit of his power. But we'll just have to wait and see where the story takes us. So until next time, stay awesome, thank you for watching, and remember to keep using that noggin. Hey everyone, in the comments below, argue about who would win, Saitama or Goku, or Superman, or Kirby. We'll do it. To cause some serious damage, including rupturing a spleen, a punch at 1,300 pounds of force. But can he defeat giant monsters with nothing more than a single punch? Can he cause fire to burst from his hands? Didn't think so. One Punch Man. One Punch Man is an interesting series. From webcomic to manga to anime, it just keeps getting wackier. It all circles around the story of Saitama, a superhero whose super strength allows him to defeat most adversaries in a single punch. And not even a punch at full force. He's shattered golems into rubble and splattered beings into gore. He's even punched the rain away. How does that even work? But what truly is the extent of his power? What if One Punch Man punched you in the face once? Punches! One of humans' few methods of attack without the use of a tool. We humans don't have claws or teeth or anything of the sort, so when under attack we have few options other than flailing our limbs about wildly. But for most of us, even this doesn't help too much, with the exception of those of us trained in combat and those of us with a higher strength stat. Some humans are able to put out a lot of power, like we see here. MMA legend Bas Rutten punches hard enough. Initially, going into this video, I was going to research everything, including how strong One Punch Man is defensively. But for the sake of simplicity, and the sake of this video not turning into multiple hours long, let's just look at his offensive power. We know Saitama can survive in outer space by holding his breath, and that he can be struck by lightning, which frequently is 5 times hotter than the surface of the sun, and not even flinch. So there is no... Well, at this point the anime, the webcomic, and the manga have yet to finish, so something could happen in the future that debunks everything I'm about to say, but as of right now, let's figure out what would happen if Saitama punched you in the face at full force.